Loneliness. I'm going to discuss that today, people. Now, everybody on earth at some point in their life has bouts of loneliness. Some are more severe than others. Now, I'm going to say that most of the ills of human society, of the human experience, a lot of them are the result of loneliness and people who suffer from them. Now, as you know, loneliness has driven a lot of people to do many things, or any rash things. I mean, people have even unalived themselves because of loneliness. Now, on this channel, of course, as you know, I cover the 16 personalities. My niche is the Myers-Briggs personality types, in particular the INFJ. Now, certain personality types, there are 16 of them, handle their loneliness in different ways. Now, a lot of times extroverted type, sensing types have a tendency to just find others in order to cope with their loneliness. Maybe find pets, and just find other comfort in other living things, let's say, and find excitement and thrills by spending time with other people, and other things. Okay, their dogs, their cats, like. Now, certain personality types, especially introverted types, have a tendency. Now, introverted is exactly that. They're more inside their own mind. They're inside their own world in their mind, especially introverted intuitive types. Now, typically these types are alone by default in a sense. Seeing that they like to spend a lot of time alone, they actually feel more at ease, a little more in comfort in this lone state. Now, even introverted type personalities still crave connection, still crave some kind of fulfillment in somebody else. Okay. Oh, by the way, this is Tom Omega, and this is the INFJ experience. And I'm going to talk about that. Now, as you know, also, loneliness has different manifestations in different types, as I've said before. But in particular, you could narrow it down to, as I said, introverted intuitives, and now narrow it down to INFJ types. Now, INFJ type personalities, this is one of the most fundamental drawback within their life. In so many ways, this is the one thing that causes them so much depression, sadness, and of course, loneliness because of it. And through the course of their life, as you know, they are introverted intuitive types, but they have extroverted feeling as their second function, which means that they like to make connections with people. So in a sense, they're already conflicted within their own personality, because they're being tugged in two different polar opposite directions in a sense. All right. Now, of course, other types have their own bouts and their own drawbacks due to loneliness. And I'm not going to say that one seems to suffer more than the other, although some do. Although some do feel the brunt of this loneliness more than others. They feel it deeper. Now, the INFJ personality type is one of those types. And I'm going to discuss some of the reasons as to why. And ultimately, though, people, I want to also discuss how to remedy our loneliness. Now, of course, as you know, different personality types might tell you, well, how do you remedy loneliness? Just surround yourself with bunches of friends. Just have a big social network of friends. Have plenty of people to call. Plenty of people on standby, on speed dial. Okay? And typically it works for them. But now these types are good at finding other people. And these types, usually that's their life. Because the extroverted type seek comfort in others. It's part of their makeup. And of course, they're geared that way. So a lot of their personality, their entire makeup revolves around appeasing certain type of people in order to keep them, let's say, energized. Okay? That's a majority of the world population. Now you get to some of the introverted intuitive types, as I've said, they enjoy their own company, their own downtime, their own selves. But even introverts, at some point, find their cold chill of loneliness on their shoulder from time to time. Now, I must say that this is something that is a debilitating thing, or it can be, for most of their early life. Now, unlike an extroverted type, sensing type, an introverted intuitive type would be more likely to have more anxiety, being that they spend a lot of time alone within themselves. They lose the ability to connect sometimes. They get awkward in certain situations, or they get fearful or shy. So they don't make as many connections. But also understand too that an introverted intuitive, especially the INFJ type, is built in such a way that they don't find the same level of fulfillment with surface level. I know this is something that is fundamentally spoken about in a lot of different videos here on YouTube, a lot of different opinions, is that surface level interactions with people just doesn't seem to be fulfilling. Because INFJs like to connect on that deeper like connecting level, spiritual level in a sense, in order to have some more of a depth of communication. So typically, as you know, INFJs have even reported saying that they feel alone amongst other people. That cold chill of loneliness can go on even amongst people. Like they can't quite connect to the group that they're in, causing them just to remain alone. Now, the INFJ personality typically has a deep introspective side to them. It's very, very vast. In fact, I believe that INFJs have the most introspective types out of the 16. But also, that introspection can leave them mentally isolated, can leave them in a vast, vapid, desolate oasis that is completely void of anything other than their own thoughts. It's the only way to describe it. And sometimes they can spend most of their life feeling this way, not really able to completely connect to the outside world, because the connections are very far and few that actually get them, that actually understand them. So their craving is actually for a soulmate, for somebody that actually could connect with them on that level. But now you ask yourself, well, what is the remedy? Not everybody's going to readily find somebody to mesh with, connect with on a deep level. You may find some people, but find out they don't have the deep connection that you're craving. So you're left alone again. You're left alone in the world as you're feeling it, amongst other people. As you know, INFJs, they're known for being the lone wolves of the MBTI. These are the types that are geared that way. But even though they're geared that way, they don't know it. Sometimes they don't know it right off. And they spend a lot of their time trying to find connections they can never quite find. But I can honestly say that the way to cure loneliness, depending on your type, especially with an INFJ, is to find your own internal fulfillment. That's all that can be done, really. Now, I could go ahead and say, you got to pray, and it's all about finding spiritual fulfillment, finding God. Now, yes, these things help. These things are all part of that, but not everybody wants to just say, okay, it's all up to God to fill you, to be your companion. Now, because God isn't always just there. You don't see an image of God. God is an abstract concept. And in some ways, God is more like a thought. I believe God is there, but God, I believe, in a sense, is a thought, an idea, a ever-present soul, eternal soul, but very elusive, just not really there to see. And also sometimes when you're far away from that voice of God, that voice of your spirit, he's not very clear either. It's not really a clear, distinctive somebody. It's like a kind of an elusive feeling, like a vibration that you feel, and understanding that something is inside you that is beyond you, but not quite complete. Now, I can only say that at some point in the life, accepting who you are, just accepting that this is who your life, what your life is, accepting that, yes, you're built a certain way, you are built to withstand hardship, you have exhausted every other avenue, let's say, maybe this happens. You might spend most of your life trying to find your perfect soulmate. Perhaps you've got married. Maybe you are married. Maybe you found children. Maybe you are married with children, and you feel as though that's your salvation to protect you from your loneliness. Okay, and some people may be fulfilled that way. But of course, as you know, sometimes human beings have their own conditions. Does anybody completely accept you for who you are? Well, maybe a dog. Yeah, maybe a dog might be your most loyal thing. Now, people, I could say, okay, the cure for loneliness is get a dog. Get a cat. Now, that does help. But again, it's still not the complete fulfillment that you're looking for. Somehow it's like we are deliberately left incomplete. Deliberately left with a hole in our spirit, in our soul, in our life. Deliberately. To keep us searching, to keep us looking, keep us forging on to find that elusive spirit of the Creator. And at some point, it's by design. It is by design. Now, again, like I said, everybody has a different remedy for their own loneliness. I mean, some people even take antidepressants, and they take medications in order to alter their reality, make them not feel so alone. But I've got into this before, talked about how this only just creates more dependent on the substance, and it also damages your neurons in your brain, and it's not good healthily. It's like an unnatural cure. So you got to rule a couple things out, in my opinion. I think these are things that don't necessarily go well. As far as just understanding what loneliness is and how to cure it, is just understanding that you have to accept who you are and understand that you are a lone type, for one. Just come to grips with the fact that this is how you're geared. You were a lone wolf. You were just a lone wolf from the beginning. At some point, all you can do is just look for inner contentment within yourself. Now, basically, I'm saying, people, you're never going to find true happiness. I mean, I think you do find true happiness, but it has to be a fulfillment within yourself, a spiritual fulfillment within yourself. Now, people, I can only say this from my own experience because this is what I had to find within myself. I was forced by default to find some kind of inner fulfillment within myself. Find some kind of grace with God, basically. Find something to fill that void. Because through most of my life, I kept looking, searching for for somebody, something, some organization, a group of friends, a network of friends that would just never fit in, you know? So you have to understand, too, that the only fulfillment you're ever going to find from loneliness is to be comfortable in your own skin. That's ultimately what it is. You're comfortable. Your cure for loneliness is to accept your loneliness. And from within that part of you, you'll be fulfilled. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there saying, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be comfortable in my own skin. I want to find somebody. I need friends. I need people around me. I need warm bodies to be in my, occupy my space in my realm to feel fulfilled. Yeah. Now, that may be all fine and good, and some people find that. But as I said before, it's specifically focusing on INFJs especially, is to know that that doesn't always fulfill them, because that deep connection isn't always there. All I can recommend is that finding your own contentment within yourself. Now listen, people, a lot of what finding your contentment is not necessarily an easy path, though. I mean, as you know, through most of your life, through most of my life, I think I've gone through many bouts of feeling that empty spot, just as we all have. And if you have this, and if you are an INFJ, you understand what loneliness is, because that's the essence of your world in some ways. It's like it revolves around who you are. That's all you knew was loneliness, was isolation. Okay, now there's sometimes you come out of it, you don't feel it so bad, you have some relief every so often. But then there's those bouts where you drift deep into it, and then that's where it hits you again. And you can't understand why, you know? But all I can say is that you have to let this gnawing pain, this ache, this pining within you stay in you, and not let it consume you, not let it control you, but at the same time, it's something that you have to understand that this is part of your only quest that's going to fill you, is by persevering within this loneliness. Because ultimately, in a sense, you're chosen. You're chosen in a sense, I mean, in a way to find a completion within yourself that is one of the most coveted quests within the human psyche. The human being longs for something, longs for connection. Okay? But at some point, also, human beings get consumed by the loneliness itself. And sometimes it just translates into unfulfillment. But material things never fill. So when you're chasing the wrong things, you need more of the wrong things in order to fulfill you. The things that are invalid, not the true things, whether or not they be material, loud parties, people, just lots of people in your life, whether it be relationships. These things only temporarily seem to fix you, but there's still a burning incompletion, a burning, incomplete, unsatisfied part of you that you have. Like, your loneliness is never going to be totally fulfilled unless you basically face it head on and see it for what it is. And something miraculous happens when you've faced yourself and gone through your dark night and gone through the depression and just let it be there. Eventually, something miraculous happens where you find a sense of completion within yourself. Now, after this happens, people don't just naturally start swarming around you. I mean, you might have something magnetic in a way, but no longer do you need that anymore. So I guess the only cure for loneliness, people, is ultimately, especially for INFJ types, is only to accept who they are, accept that their loneness for what it is, and just look further within that lone spot within them. But eventually it transfers into the greatest part of their sanctuary within them. Like that little lone spot that's in there, that's always that little lonely spot, eventually turns into your greatest fortress of strength. Yeah. So basically, it's that little psyche in there. That lone spot has to be changed. And all that can happen is facing it, accepting who you are, acknowledging that you have this, and searching deeper within yourself. And finally, having this completion within yourself. Now, listen, if you're an INFJ, you know what I'm saying. You probably understand exactly what I'm saying. But that's really the only thing that's going to get you out of your funk, I guess you could say. All right? And again, I could sit here right away, give you all the superficial, feels good type of things. Just start getting more social, start getting on dating apps, start going to the movies, start gathering lots of people every other weekend or every weekend and go out with your group of friends, get into a relationship. Now, that might work for some. That might work for some, but not all necessarily it's going to work for. For our type, this is what works, is you have to get a hold of that inner self. And again, it's something that you have to strive for. Now listen, people, it's, as you know, you've had a painful life, and I know you have. You've had a suffering life. If you're an INFJ, you've had a very painful life up to this point. And I can only say that all you can do is just keep persevering and letting that be where it is and not run from it. And eventually when you find your completion, you'll know it. You'll know it because you'll have a sense of completion and peace in your heart. And then things start changing. Your allegiance changes. You know, all of a sudden when you do little bad things or think little bad things, you don't want to think that way anymore. It all kind of goes hand in hand, like you found some sort of a state of grace in a sense. And now, honestly, people, I can only speak from my own experience and say this is the path I had to take to find my own completion for loneliness. Now, honestly, still, I live alone in this house. And I have for 3 years, and I've lived alone for 2 years before that. Okay? And I have no plan on getting remarried. I have no plan on getting involved with anybody right now, unless something just happens. But I'm not looking for it anymore. But I gotta tell you the truth, people. It's just a weight is lifted off you. It's just a feeling of completion that you get when you finally find that little ache in your spot is changed into your greatest fortress of solitude, your sanctuary within. This is what you got to long for. Okay? But again, I mean, I think that's the essence of what it is. Okay? I mean, I think God leaves some of us alone. Some of the true warriors. He leaves us to keep searching and aching because deep down, God wants that completion within himself. Okay? God wants us to be completed. But our completion is part of his completion as well. Yeah. Because he gave us that free will, gave us that whole ability to do things on our own, make decisions on our own, free will on our own, but also gave us the ability to almost complete him with our completion. Okay? Yeah, it makes God much more completed. Okay. It's a funny little thing. See, these are little things you kind of understand. You start understanding how deep the spirit is. And once you start understanding that, then you understand your own relationship the way you are and realize that that's a direct mirror to who created you. It's a direct creator. Then all of a sudden there's a little bit of there's a relationship there. The ultimate relationship. Yeah, that's basically what it is. But anyway, that's the cure. That is what loneliness is, okay? And that's how it's remedied, okay? For our type, that is, especially for our type, okay? For the INFJ personality type, okay? Well, I think I've rambled on quite a bit here, people. If anybody's stuck around to the very end of this, I'm going to give you a gold medal, because this was a tough one to sit through. But if you heard me and just stuck around, then you you deserve a lot of credit. Okay. Well, people, if you like this kind of video and you like me just rambling on about things like that, then thank you for showing up today, people. But as you know, all I can be is some kind of an inspiration for the INFJ, because the INFJ experience, as you know, it's a unique one, and it can be a very lonely one. It really can be. But until you find that internal grace, you'll finally find out what you were made for. Finally figure out what it's all about. Okay. Well, people, thank you so much for sticking around again. And please, if you would, comment, leave your likes, and of course, subscribe to the channel. And maybe these are the videos that I'm surrounded by right here. You could click on some more if you'd like to see. And of course, always understand that I usually do a live broadcast on Saturday nights, and occasionally a Sunday night I do a live broadcast. So hopefully you can see some of my rebroadcast or catch me live sometime. And we'll do an open Q&A. I like to do those as well, people. All right? Okay. But anyway, people, until the next time we meet again, have yourself a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you.